schools, supporting parents with maths education and the wisdom-rich curriculum. As always, we'd love to hear from you, so call or text the show live via the website www.ttradio.org and join the conversation.
Live from York, this is the Late Late Show with Christopher Vowles on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Late Show. Having had a brief glance at Twitter earlier in the week, I learned that the big conversation a couple of days ago was what teachers ought to be reading over the next month or so, which would suggest that virtually everyone has now packed up the exercise books, hung up their lanyard in a place as memorable as it is safe, and vacated the classroom for the summer holiday. I understand that they have even finished the summer term in Nottinghamshire at this point in July. I've just reached that point in the summer holiday where there is work that needs to be done for next term. So I'm carefully plotting a new sixth form tutorial program, gathering ideas for new ways of teaching Anglo-Saxon riddles to year 7, hoping that someone has managed to find a fail-safe way of getting students to embed quotations in every essay paragraph they write. For now, much of next year's planning is being done internally while queuing in the bakers, driving at 20 miles per hour along B roads that seem to be in a permanent state of resurfacing. Or perhaps even cleaning the kitchen. I've also been able to spend some more time than is usual listening to the shows of my wonderful Teachers Talk Radio colleagues, picking up recommendations for my growing summer reading list, learning about some of the more unusual journeys into the teaching profession, and discussions of schools, universities, and social mobility. If you've got a long holiday drive coming up, then what better way to spend it than with a few podcasts from the Teachers Talk Radio team? Next week, it's back to the desk for me, I feel, but there's a long drive down to Dartmoor coming up before the summer's out. Last week, my daughter successfully finished her second year of primary school. Unfortunately, her last week of term was spent at home as a single positive COVID test put the whole school of 40 children into self-isolation for 10 days that came to an end today. This put paid to the school play and to the school sports day and signalled the return of home-based remote learning. Consequently, my daughter spent most of the week working on her times tables with Times Table Rockstars, designing Google slideshows on various topics, and spinning on my office chair. She also, however, spent a lot of time practicing her newly acquired chess skills, both with a physical chess set and with an app called chess.com. She first started learning how the pieces move with her granddad about a month ago, but has now reached the stage where she can play a game of about 30 moves to a natural conclusion. She's built up to this by working through a series of solo chess puzzles with a computer and has clearly transferred some of her learning here to the physical chess set. She now knows how to protect some pieces. She understands why losing your queen early on in a game can be a real nuisance, and she has grasped a basic opening system using her king's knight. Last weekend, when she set up the board, she said, "Dad, don't you think the pawns should start at the back? They'd have more protection then." Tonight, I'm pleased to welcome two guests much better placed to answer such a question than me. Jade Ritchie and Harry Nucleus are two primary school teachers with a passion for chess and for helping children overcome their challenges in mathematics. Jade and Harry have a wonderful story to tell about their experiences with chess in the primary school classroom and the role it has played in supporting the development of social, emotional, and intellectual skills in the children with whom they have worked, which we will explore in the next 40 minutes or so before breaking for the news. Then we will consider a second project that Hari and Jade have been involved with, and that's maths intervention in the primary school and the benefits of helping parents understand the mathematical skills that their children are learning in Key Stages 1 and 2, so that they can better support them at home. Then, in the final part of the show, Jade and Harry will join me in reflecting upon what the wisdom-rich curriculum might look like in the primary phase. I suspect that chess and mathematics may have a role to play here as we look to establish our wisdom-rich education revolution live here on the Late Late Show. As ever, we are broadcasting live on the internet, so please do call or text the show via the website www.ttradio.org and join the conversation. And I'm pleased to say that I've got Jade on the line now. Good evening, Jade. How are you?
Ken, I'm well, thank you. It was such an interesting question that your daughter asked, actually, about the pawns on the back rank, because a lot of children don't actually value the importance of pawns. So it's great to hear a 6-year-old thinking in that way.
Perfect. Well, hopefully you'll have some kind of intelligent answer I can give to her next time the question arises. Is Harry with you there, Jade?
I know Harry's trying to get on. I'm not sure where she is at the moment, but
Okay.
we can make a start while she's trying.
Perfect. I'm sure she'll be able to join us before long. So then, Jade, I've already given a brief outline to your teaching career for the benefit of listeners. Would you like to give us a little more context concerning your current role and the community you serve before we discuss your experiences with chess in the classroom?
Yeah, of course. So Harry and I have both been primary school teachers for quite some time. We actually met in our previous school where we were leading maths across Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And we actually had the challenge of moving our school away from a scripted math scheme and onto the new mastery curriculum. So there were lots of ideas that we were able to try out. We were very fortunate to work under a head teacher who trusted our vision, and also very lucky to work with maths leaders across the borough of Enfield, led by 2 fantastic maths consultants, Sarah Tilley and Peter Warwick. And being able to work with those maths leaders really gave us the opportunity to hear about lots of different initiatives and ones that had worked in schools with a similar demographic to our own. But whilst leading maths in that school, we were constantly bouncing ideas between the 2 of us, not just in developing maths in our own school, but also in ways that we could have a wider impact with primary maths. And chess was always one of the things that we did discuss. And then with the success of the Queen's Gambit, and obviously in the face of COVID, we decided that actually now's the time to give that a go. And so that's what we spent the last year doing, using our primary maths expertise to develop a programme that's inclusive and engaging.
Fantastic. It's a very good summary of what you've been looking at so far. I think we're just about to get Harry on the line now. Hello, Harry. Can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Harry, would you
Okay.
like to offer a bit of context on your teaching position too, so that our listeners have a sense of what challenges you've been working with?
Yes, so I've been teaching for over 20 years in Enfield, and I'm a primary school teacher, but in the last 8 years, I've been a maths intervention teacher, and I've been supporting children from year 2 all the way up to year 6 who struggle with maths. So I trained as a numbers count teacher 8 years ago, and that is a program from Every Child Counts from Edge Hill University, and you basically work with year 2 children every day for about half an hour, taking them not out of their core subjects, but from assemblies and here and there, and you help close those gaps. And there's also other interventions, so I train support staff as well, so they close the gap. And I've been a year 6 teacher to just maths. So that's where I am now. So that's my maths background.
Fantastic. So you've both got the experience then of seeing primary school children make this progress as they move through the phase and prepare themselves for secondary school.
Yeah, I would also say we've had the experience of watching teachers develop their own practice, because obviously with the introduction of the new curriculum, there were lots of changes. So we really had to get staff on board to be able to lead a lot of the different things that we were introducing.
And what were the most challenging things you were introducing, Jade?
I'd say in the previous curriculum, if you had a child who was working above the age expected expectations, you would just move them up the curriculum. So a year 2 child would start working on year 3 or year 4 work. And similarly, if a child was underachieving, you'd go back to the year before. So really, the new curriculum focuses on developing mastery. So instead of moving them on, you're trying to deepen their learning. And so it was a new way for everyone to think, not just like every teacher, but maths leaders too, because you really had to explore how you were going to show mastery and show that your children could apply what they'd learnt in various different ways.
Fantastic. And one of the ways we're going to be talking about this evening then, for children to learn or put into practice some of these learnings from the wider elements of the primary school curriculum they're following, is the chessboard. So Jade, tell me about chess. How did that get off the ground?
So yeah, like I mentioned before, Harry and I had been talking about different ideas for quite some time, and chess was really one of the things that Harry introduced, and I kind of went with it, and we did some tournaments and trained people up at school, but Harry was really the leading force in the chess. So Harry, would you like to?
Oh, okay, yeah, and I'm ready now. I had a little panic before, so I'm with you now properly. So yeah, chess has been always there in my 20 or so years of teaching. It's always been in the background. Even in my first school, I went on a chess course. We went to a chess tournament. There's a group of schools in Enfield, the Townies, that used to run a yearly chess tournament. So that was the highlight to the year. And then when I joined my other school where Jade and I worked together, we continued with chess, and it was more of an open door chess lunch club rather than lessons for me. And then we got involved with Chess in Schools. So Chess in Schools is a wonderful UK charity led by the great Malcolm Payne, who writes the chess column in the Telegraph, and I know he'd love to come on your show, Christopher, and talk chess. And it's his vision basically to make chess inclusive. So if you are interested in chess, you get in touch with Chess in Schools, and they have a great team of chess tutors, and they come and teach a year program, and that happens within the day. So that happened in our school, and I got to see those lessons. And we went to Olympia. There was at Christmas they had, before COVID, the London Chess Classic, where you get to see grandmasters playing in a tournament. You get to have the children also in a tournament, and you just feel part of this bigger chess community. So we had that as well, and then we also had the Enfield chess tournaments. And it's always been there. And when I was, I don't know, about 13 years ago in Enfield, there was Mike Bassman, a really wonderful chess player, and he came up to me and he said, I need chess tutors. And I was a little bit overwhelmed. I was a new mum then, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can. But he had said to me, I need good teachers. So you don't have to be a high-level chess player or play in tournaments, but what I do need for primary education is teachers that can connect and who are good teachers. So that was always there. That was like the what if. Why didn't I take that opportunity? And then fast forward to Christmas with the Queen's Gambit and COVID. Jade and I, whenever we talk about our ideas, we came back to chess again. And we were like, if we don't do it now, because there's been this new interest in chess because of the wonderful Queen's Gambit, people who played when they were young or played with their family or want to learn were interested again. So we just thought, it's now or never, and let's do this. So that's our chess journey.
That's the beginning of our chess journey, because then what we did was we reached out to Malcolm Payne, and he actually gave us permission to use his lessons and adapt them with a primary teacher perspective. So
maths, yeah. So the maths,
yeah.
we wanted to overlap chess and maths, and we thought that that's our edge actually. And the benefits of chess are huge, but when you come at it through the maths perspective, we just feel like we can really prove to head teachers and primary school teachers that when you combine the two together, that it brings so many benefits. So critical thinking, problem solving, planning ahead, visualization skills, looking for different possibilities, analyzing, critical thinking skills. They all work. And then there's the generic benefits of chess: good sportsmanship, kindness, supporting each other, knowing how to win and knowing how to lose, connecting. And I think after the year and a half that we've had, children and adults actually more than ever need a way to connect. And it's a I mean, it can be quite competitive, but it's a lovely way to engage and have that social connection with people. So that's so actually we are at the beginning of our journey, and the chess community is so amazing. They really have opened doors for us and welcomed us, and we know we have so much to learn, but we think we're onto something great, because we really do. Yeah.
I think you may well be
Yes.
right. So this chess tutoring then, what is involved in chess tutoring, Harry?
So at the moment, we've made up this program, and since January to July, we have been doing our program online with some children, small groups of children, and I also did an adults group as well. And we got to see our program work, like how to tweak it, how to develop it. We saw how it worked, and we were really proud of what we created and what our learners achieved actually online. And then in the last half term, I've been in my school, and my head teacher, Jan Bless from Prince of Wales Primary School in Enfield, he's really allowed me to have that creativity. And I've been teaching chess to year 6 within the school day. I've had a year 5 club. I've been doing a girls project. I've got an after school club in Southgate. And I've also had a wonderful opportunity with an amazing head teacher, Christala Jamil, in Tottenham, from St Paul's and All Hallows, and she's allowed me to go to school on Friday, take over the Friday mornings and teach chess to year 4, and year 6 were also interested and have a lunch club. So I basically took every opportunity I could to get into the classroom, because it is one thing doing it online, but we needed to see these lessons in real time. And it's been intense, but it's been so amazing, and I've loved teaching chess. So that's where we are with our lessons, and we're developing. After the summer, Christopher, we're going to look at having a chess journal, how we can bring in recorded activities, so chess puzzles into the lesson as well. So we're always evolving and developing.
Fantastic. I mean, one of the real gains from lockdown for me has been witnessing my daughter manipulating these chess puzzles, which are essentially solo chess games where you, on the computer, she's using an app called chess.com, where it lines up a number of pieces, and you have to take a piece on each piece's turn, but the piece can only move twice at most until you've cleaned up all the pieces on the board. I suppose it's a bit like completing a snooker 147 break. So you just shot after shot after shot after shot goes in the pocket, and here move after move takes a piece. But some of them are quite fiendishly difficult. But what she's actually started doing is taking the online puzzles that she's stepped through, basically from the easy level to one of the moderately difficult levels, and then set them up on the chessboard and said, "Daddy, can you now do this one? Or can you set me one to do now?" And while my wife teaches yoga on a Sunday morning, it's quite a good way of keeping her focused and engaged for a couple of hours at a time, actually, just moving pieces across the board and then setting them up again. So I think the lockdown period has given us the opportunity to explore board games, and we came to chess quite late as one of the board games on the list. But now actually taking some of those discoveries from that online world into the physical chess environment, into the physical tactile chessboard space, has really been quite positive. Jade, have you seen any of your students make this transition from online to physical world chess playing in the last couple of months?
So unfortunately, I've actually only done online because I haven't been at school this year, but I've already set up a chess club for my new school, so they are looking forward to me starting there. But I do know from feedback from the children that I was teaching online that many of them were going away using the skills that we'd taught them, quite tricky ones for 6-year-olds, things like en passant and pins and skewers. And they were very excited, and they were very clearly articulating what they'd done in their games. So I'm confident that they were applying those well on the real board.
Interesting question, I suppose. This would probably be easier for Harry to answer, I suspect. Harry, when your children are playing chess in the primary school, do they commentate on their process while they are playing at all?
They do. So I basically commentate on everything, and I kind of model that thinking process because we're at the early stage. It's a beginner's course, so it's a weekly lesson lasting the whole year. So we start with each piece, then we go to check and checkmate patterns, and then we'll look at different strategies, fork skewers and pins, and things like that. But that is part of the lesson. That I model that thought process, that analysis, and if I do this, then what might my opponent do, or if white does this, what are white's choices and what would happen. So they're visualizing on the chessboard, and so I'll do an intro, the children will play and explore. I'll do another, then I'll build on that, look at what I've seen and build on their learning. But the whole time, if you were to watch one of the lessons, the children are supporting each other and they're helping each other, and it's really wonderful to see. So that the role of talk is, I know it's a silent game in on the tournament level, but when we're learning chess, it's all about talking through the possibilities, your thought process. And even if they lose a game, I do say to the children, right, if you've lost the game, I want you to stop and analyze where was your weak point in the game, what could you have done better, and if you won the game, what was your strength today, and what advice would you give each other? So there's a real collaborative learning process, and I also let them see me make mistakes, because that's really important. That the deepest learning happens when you make a mistake, and that's how you grow. So that growth mindset is all part of our learning. And I have to say, Christopher, maybe about 5-6 years ago, I had a year 6 boy, and I hadn't taught him, and he came to my open door chess club, and he sat down and he played me, and I beat him. And I don't give children chances. I tell them from the start, I'm going to play properly here. And when I beat him, his the way his body changed, it was a hostile moment, and he just glared at me. He glared at me, and I thought, oh goodness, what, this doesn't feel very nice. But he had to cope with that moment, and it happens with a lot of children that come into that open door chess club. A lot of the children I have, they struggle in the playground, and sometimes, and chess helps them control their emotions, so it can be transformative. It empowers a child. It lets them know chess, like life, is not always about winning. You have to cope with mistakes, and it's how you learn and grow.
And actually, we had feedback from one of our students online. He was 6 as well, and he'd played against his dad, and he lost. And he said something to his dad along the lines of, "Oh, you won," and his dad turned around to him and said, "No, you won." And we actually explored that idea in a later lesson.
Yeah.
What did his dad mean by "you had won"? And then we spoke about, like Harry said, the importance of making mistakes, and that actually you learn more the more mistakes that you make.
Yeah, it's a very good purpose to put chess to, I think, isn't it, in the primary school? My daughter hates getting anything wrong, certainly in maths, and she's getting better at getting things wrong now that she's started playing chess to a reasonable degree. So is there something that we could look at doing more generally in primary schools? Do we think there's a role for chess more generally in the primary school curriculum, perhaps?
Oh, Harry, sorry.
Oh, so sorry. I was going to say, so Malcolm Payne, who has created Chess in Schools, his vision is all about making chess inclusive, making it a fair. We want to make it a level playing field, and it should be accessible to all children, not just those that can afford it in education or or after school clubs, because the benefits it brings, not only to enjoy the love of chess, the game of chess and its brain training, but it also gives you learning tools. It makes you aware of yourself as a learner. How do I approach this challenge? How can I work harder? How can I study better? Can I memorize things? Am I analytical, or do I just soak up factual information but do nothing with it? So what we want from schools and head teachers and staff is to get in touch with chess in schools, and give it a go. And I'm in London. I'm more than happy to come and do a demo to show you, because I would really love for people to feel that buzz in the room. And I know that's what Christala Jamil in Tottenham, she has felt that. She has her students, when I'm not there, they go up to her and say, "Miss, we want to do chess every day." Or when they walk through the door and see me, or the same with my students at my school, "Miss Maths, are we doing chess today?" They love it. They're engaged, they're absorbed. And our lessons are not just about the chessboard, it's about history, it's about female players and male players and children coming through with their stories. And it's philosophy. There's just so much that chess can bring. So we would love more schools. There's so many countries around the world where chess is part of the curriculum. And it would be lovely to see that in the UK. In England.
Where is chess part of the curriculum, Harry?
So in many Eastern European countries, and I know America is doing so much for it to be. Oh, sorry, I've got a message. I'm fiddling with my papers. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I know in America it's part of the curriculum, and in countries in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East, it is part, and they are nurture. And I know it's not all about creating tournament players. It really isn't. It's more than that. It's beyond that as well. But it's part of their ethos. It's part of their culture.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I
Yeah.
seem to remember back in the 1980s, when I was starting, I think, to play a little bit of chess. We moved into chess I went through a first school, middle school, high school system in Exeter. And we started playing chess, I think, in about year 4 or 5 in our middle school. And it was a proper chess club with ladders and rankings and stuff,
Wow.
run by, again, one of our maths teachers. But I seem to look back at it now and almost see it as a kind of proxy space for the Cold War to be contested.
Yeah,
Particularly when
well,
I'm thinking back to some of those televised tournaments that were on for a brief period in kind of 88, 89.
yes. Yeah, it is. And we add that historical element to it as well. There are so many layers to chess. And something else about the tournaments. I know that some teachers might be afraid of that part, the organization that is needed, but if you take chess into your schools, you will get support with those events. And Chess in Schools will send a tutor, and they will do the teaching, and you can watch and learn. So don't be afraid. And I know that if you go online and look at different chess sites and all these different streams, it can be really overwhelming. And you might just want to learn to play for fun. You might not want to get a rating and go down that route. So you have to think, right, don't get too overwhelmed by the chess world. It's huge and so big. You can just do it. You can just have it as a pastime, as a hobby, and not feel pressure to take it further. So yeah.
Okay, Jade. So we've got a powerful argument there for including chess in the curriculum. Is that something you'd support?
Yeah, we've spoken about it several times, and how somewhere down the line we'd love to be able to contact MPs and maybe do.
Jade, you told me not to go there. You told me to hide my passion, and now you're saying it. Yeah, totally agree.
No, we do, but not just chess. Like, just there's so many valuable games that children can play, and it really creates a really non-threatening space for them to develop lots of life skills. And obviously, chess is very great at doing that.
Christopher, can I
Perfect.
mention
Can you
a
tell me about
massive
some-
event?
Yeah, go
The
for
Chess
it.
Fest. We cannot not speak about the Chess Fest, and I have no idea of the time. But not a week and a half ago, there was a Trafalgar Square takeover. There was the first ever UK chess festival organised by Chess in Schools, and it was amazing. It was opened by Woody Harrelson, the actor, and there was actors acting out a live chess game, giant chess. There were expert chess players playing games with children and adults. There was a teaching zone, art and crafts with chess, and it was such a beautiful day to be in our lovely London town. It had been so long, and yeah, it was just amazing to see that. And the day before, around, I think in Liverpool and in London, children from schools and chess clubs were in tournaments. And then on the Sunday, it was the big festival for everyone. So there are photos. If you just look up Chess Fest UK, you'll see some amazing pictures from chess in schools.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it in our chat the other week, didn't we? This boy who'd made the news. I think he was a 12-year-old boy who'd made the news for performing particularly well in a particular chess competition. And I think he'd started fairly young as well.
Yes, and he was he was there playing live with Tania Dewumi as well in America. They had a game against each other with everything that was going on, and it was really, really wonderful to see. Great day out. Can't wait for the next one next year. So please do come next year.
We certainly would try to.
Yeah, and you know what was really great? So Jade and I would sit down in the shade because it was one of our hottest days. What we really enjoyed is watching the tutors engage with all the children and the adults. It was so nice to see Malcolm's whole team there of chess tutors. So yeah, we got a lot out of it actually.
Fantastic. And what about the opportunity for the children to socialise beyond the chessboard? Was there some opportunity for them to do that too?
Yeah, so on the days previously, there was an event at the Victoria and Albert Museum where the children could go and have a trip to the museum and look at the Alice in Wonderland exhibition, because in the film there is chess, and chess is not, it's being part of a community, so socializing is a big part of that, and having that time to talk and share stories and celebrate every chess player. So yeah, that is part of the chess ethos, the community.
Do you think we have a particular, I'm trying to think of the right word really, a particular need to perhaps push chess more in the UK than perhaps would be the case in, say, Southern Europe?
Jade, do you want to? Yeah, talk too much.
I'm not sure that I know enough about their education system in Southern Europe, but I would say that in the UK, maths anxiety is quite high amongst adults and quite often passed on to children. And we really believe that chess is a way to lessen that anxiety, because, as we mentioned before, there's so many math skills that you can pull out of chess that children don't necessarily realize that they're using, but then you can transfer them straight into maths lessons. Things like the logical thinking, finding all possibilities, thinking ahead. They're all problem-solving activities that are so vital through, like, across the primary curriculum, that really that's a strong argument in itself.
And how do you feel the idea of chess, or the game of chess, or the culture of chess needs to be promoted in communities that wouldn't naturally be involved in it in the home environment?
I think school is the best access for that, because obviously that's where they're all together, and if the children go home talking about chess, the parents are more likely to then engage in it with them. And Harry and myself we spent a long time trying to improve parental engagement at home and within the school. But when you are able to get those parents into school, it's actually so easy to get them to buy into what you believe. So really, schools are the best place to do that, because you're targeting so many different communities at once.
Yeah, schools are the first port of call. And I know from some of my children that when I did the girls project, there was one girl that said, "Miss, my daddy tried to teach me, and he tried to teach me about every piece in one go, and he made me cry." So I think there are parents that do want to share their love of chess or learn the game with their children, but they don't know how to. It is a complicated game. It's a challenging game. So I think maybe it could be through online lessons. I've tried getting in touch with parent magazines, but a lot of them think that I'm a business, so they want to charge me to share my love of chess. So we just have, Jade and I, we need to keep kind of knocking on doors and saying, let us write an article, let us show you how it can help your child as a learner or help them with their social skills and their self-study skills. So we just got to keep being creative and knocking on doors and sharing stories
and also working
celebrating.
collaboratively with people like Chess in Schools who have already laid so much of the groundwork, and they are spread across the UK. So really, it's not something you can do by yourself. You just need to get as many people on board and join up with people who are already successful.
Fantastic. And in your school, Jade, how are you intending to get the girls involved in playing chess in your new position?
Well, I will hopefully have time to teach within the school day, and I would like to, but I haven't actually spoken about it at the schools. But I would
you
like
also
to
have another project, Jade.
Yeah,
Talk about
I
your
will
other-
get
your
to that.
Yeah.
But I would like to do a girls only chess club to see if that will improve engagement. But as Harry just threw in, I have recently reached out to a local mosque to ask if we could possibly run an all girls club there. My husband's actually Muslim, so he's connected to the mosque already. So we're hoping to reach out into that community and do it that way and see how that goes.
That sounds a wonderful idea. What benefits would you expect to bring to the girls in that particular community?
I don't think it's so much a particular community in that way, because a lot of the Muslim community are very hands-on with their children's learning, especially in the area that I'm in. It's more just trying to find a way to solely target girls, and sometimes girls can feel quite threatened by boys' competitiveness. So really just creating that kind of safe space where they can learn in a way that suits them and not have to constantly feel like they're there just for competition. And I mean, some girls, they do want to be there for competition, but there are other girls who want to explore the different aspects of chess, the history, the art that's been associated with it, and all of those different elements that can come from chess. So I think that's something that I will try and explore, is which parts of chess do girls engage with the most.
Fantastic. Harry, when you set up your original walk-in chess club, was there a gender imbalance, or was it something that started 50-50?
There has always been a gender imbalance, and that's with me, not an outside tutor. That's with me, a teacher who knows the girls well. I'd always, I'd go out. Who'd like to join me today? I'd also go out and just remind them, very often the girls would look at each other and just go, and I'd be like, that's all right, girls, go and play. I could tell they would, if they had the choice, they would rather go and play with their friends. Whereas the boys, if they saw me from the other side, they would come to me. So I know there is something there. That's why it should be inclusive, or even an after school club. If you put it within the school timetable, the girls will love it. And I see that in Tottenham. And there's a wonderful chess player and poker player called Jennifer Shahade. I hope I said her name correctly, in America. And occasionally I've joined her sessions online, and she does online chess clubs. That's one of the projects that she's done for girls, and she's had guest speakers. She analyzes the chessboard, chess puzzles, and she also talks about chess being for girls and probably and for boys as well. But she says for girls that if we add that extra layer to it, so maybe adding the arts and crafts, adding the arts and crafts aspect, adding the different, making it cross curriculum, adding that social element, so it doesn't feel only like it's a competitive, but you feel that you're making friendships as well. So that's something that we will be exploring more. And I saw that within my girls' chess project in the last few weeks. I was coming at it from different angles, and we just felt empowered. It was really wonderful to feel that connection between the girls. So they want to feel more than just competitive players. That's something that makes a difference. And also when they go into secondary school, a lot of the girls will drop out of chess. So even if they found their passion in their primary years, something happens when they go secondary, and maybe they have other interests and their interest in chess declines. That's something we have to look at and dig deeper to find out why and how we can stop that.
That's certainly an interesting point, perhaps, to explore maybe in a later show another time. But I'm certainly struck by the idea that you bringing all of the children together into the experience of chess through the primary school curriculum school day would be a very effective way of perhaps balancing up any gender imbalance that might exist. It's quite curious because when we moved into secondary school, in my case, the choice was between playing football at lunchtime in the playground or going and playing chess. And it was never consistently one nor the other. It was a case of, well, perhaps this week, yeah, it's raining, perhaps I'll have a bit of chess. The sun's out, perhaps I'll have a bit of football. It was a bit more, well, it wasn't a formal club by the time we moved into secondary school. It was essentially a chemistry teacher with an open chemistry lab and a few chessboards who would be there if you wanted to go in and play chess. He was impossible to beat. I don't think anybody ever beat him in the entire time we were in the school.
That's why he had the chess club, so that he could just keep beating people at lunchtime.
May well be, Jade, but he would give you fair warning of what he was about to do, and then he'd do it, and there was no possible way you would be able to escape his fiendish plan that he'd concocted 70 moves ahead of you. So yeah, that was my experience or memory of playing chess at secondary school. I remember it being a much more social, collaborative thing when I was in middle school, actually, and it was an after-school club, and I think the balance of students was, I think, about 60 male and 40% female. But all of the girls in the club were there to play chess and to win. So I wonder if there's something about the environment we were in that pushed everybody in that direction, or
it could also have been your age, because obviously there's so many different developmental stages, and in primary school the boys do tend to be more competitive. Not always, there are lots of competitive girls, but it could be a developmental thing.
Yeah, I say competitive. I don't mean to the point that we were all, single-mindedly focused on reaching the top of the ladder in the club. But I can remember doing some quite bizarre things at the chessboard in a couple of games. I remember playing this boy who I'd never played before and didn't know how good he was. So I was just kind of testing the waters by moving my pieces about. And it got to the stage about, I suppose, I can't remember how many moves. It must have been about 20 moves into the game, where all I'd actually done in the match was move my entire set of pieces from the starting position they take at the beginning of the game to being exactly in the same position again, but 2 squares forward on the board. But I think I was up against an ultra defensive player, and we were both quite defensive. And I remember all of the children in the club coming over to watch this game after we'd made about 16 moves without taking any pieces, and that's literally all that had happened. And I then came back to reading a book when I was at university called Murphy by Samuel Beckett, in which there's a moment. Murphy is a character in a mental asylum, and he plays chess against one of his guards, and Samuel Beckett moves into a phase where all he presents in the book, midway through the prose, is just a set of chess notation outlining all of the individual moves the players had made in the game.
Wow.
And the mental patient moves through the match, but none of his moves seem to acknowledge that his opponent exists. So he would just move his pieces seemingly randomly and then start moving pieces in ways that are not permitted within the rules.
Oh.
And his opponent just eventually gives up because he just can't get through to this player. And it struck me that there are moments, I see this with my daughter, I can remember it in my experiences in our middle school chess club where you would just be essentially just messing around, seeing what would happen. There were games where you'd take the most ridiculous opening and just see what would happen, and you'd probably lose, but at least you could say, well, I was just mucking about.
It's a safe space to explore, isn't it? Whatever mood you're in during that chess club or chess lesson, you can actually just explore and enjoy
And
that
because to
game.
find what does work, you always need to know what won't work. So it is a really good way to develop your play.
Yeah, so those failed experiments in symmetry have their own kind of lessons that we might draw from them. Fantastic. Well, that's probably wrapped up our conversation on chess for this first section of the show, Jade and Harry. So if you'd like to stay with me after the news, we'll move into exploring your experiences with maths and how you've worked with parents of primary school children to support them with their children's maths education. So we're going to go to the news and our first advert break, and then we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. The supermarket Aldi, in partnership with giving platform Neighbourly, has committed to support charities across the UK to donate surplus food, with more than 700,000 meals going to causes that support children. Mary Dunn, Managing Director of Corporate Responsibility at Aldi UK, said, "We are proud to be supporting so many incredible causes up and down the country, helping to donate meals to those in need this summer. The school holidays can be a hard time for families, particularly when many are experiencing heightened financial hardship due to the pandemic. And this is why we are committed to do what we can to donate more meals than ever before." Steve Butterworth from Neighbourly added, "The summer holidays are always one of the busiest times for the nation's charities and food banks, but this year we've been expecting things to be even busier. Aldi's donations have never been more of a vital support to these organisations." Unions who represent local authority workers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland have said that staff working for councils and in schools are worth more than the 1.75% pay offer put forward by employers. The unions have stated that the offer falls well short of the 10% claim they submitted this year. Unison Deputy Head of Local Government, Mike Short, said, "A 0.25% increase on the initial 1.5% is insignificant. Council staff have kept communities clean and safe, protected the most vulnerable, and worked in schools throughout successive lockdowns to allow others to work. Their courage and sacrifices need to be rewarded, yet the employers are failing to recognise their efforts. There will be a huge impact on morale. Employers say they'd like to give council staff more, but they have refused to work with us to get the money. These workers, mostly women, are amongst the lowest paid in the country and have seen their pay drop substantially in recent years. This 1.75% offer is nowhere near what is needed. Reps from across England, Wales and Northern Ireland will now decide their next move." This has been your daily education news briefing.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.CRE8TIVEresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TT Radio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm discussing mathematics and supporting parents with primary school mathematics with my guests tonight, Jade Ritchie and Harry Nucleus. We've just been discussing chess and the value of chess in the school curriculum. And we're going to, in this part of the show, move on to explore the topic of mathematics in the primary school and how we might support those parents, particularly those who are working with their children at home through remote learning. And then we're going to move on in the final show section to talk about the nature of our wisdom-rich curriculum and what might be involved in that. So, Jade, would you like to start us off then? Maths in schools and supporting parents with maths in primary schools. What caused you to think that might be a need that required addressing?
And so Harry and I worked in what I guess you would consider a disadvantaged school. So we worked with a lot of parents who didn't always have positive experiences with their own education, and many of whom had maths anxiety on different levels. So with the introduction of the mastery curriculum and also considering how we teach calculations differently now to how we were taught, we thought the best way to improve home learning, so homework and any kind of learning going on at home, was actually to get the parents in. And so that's what we did.
Fantastic. Were you parenting at home as well as teaching at home, Jade?
So my children are actually preschoolers. So I did have a child at home. However, he was he's starting reception in September, so at the time he was quite young, so I wasn't actually teaching these strategies at home myself.
Okay, so you didn't get to try on any guinea pigs first.
I think the fact that we do it at school all of the time, and me and Harry both believe in lots of games and very interactive learning and lots of problem solving. So actually those types of activities are things that are quite easily transferable to home learning, especially the games. And we used to teach children probably games, especially in year 2 and 3, but you can quite easily do it throughout primary school. We teach them different games for each concept that we were learning. So if we were doing addition or subtraction or multiplication, we'd have a bank of games that they could then hopefully take home and be able to do at home. But obviously for that to be successful, the parents also need to know the expectations.
Yeah, I need to be prepared to spend the time, I suppose, to sit down and work through the games with them.
Yeah, we did find that actually once parents came to us and we'd run quite a few workshops, that it wasn't always time and it wasn't always willingness. It was quite often that maths anxiety and the fact that they'd had negative experiences themselves. And so it was really just trying to get past that barrier.
And where are you finding those negative experiences in the past were coming from, Jade?
So when we were at school, I would say a lot of the maths learning was very procedural. So it was very much, this is the method and we're going to do it until you get it. And so we were all introduced to formal method, probably year 2, year 3. Whereas now in a lot of schools, we try to break that down and we try to really develop it in a progressive way so that by the time they're using formal method, it's already it's building on skills that they already have. So it's not learning a procedure for the sake of learning a procedure. It's just bringing it all together. And so we would say that now maths teaching is based a lot more on conceptual understanding rather than learning procedures.
Are there any examples you could think of where that's the case that our listeners might be familiar with?
Yeah, so an easy one to go back to is times tables, because we probably all remember being at school and you had to go home, learn them, or you might learn them in class, you would just chant them. And for me personally, we would have teachers who would say, okay, we're going to ask you a times table fact and you have until I click my fingers to be able to answer. And you didn't necessarily know that if you were asked 3 times 4, that meant you have 3 groups of 4, or you have 4 and you have it 3 times. There wasn't the opportunity to explore that with concrete apparatus or to draw it out. It was very much, this is the answer, let's learn it. And actually I've spoken to Harry about this several times because we quite often talk about our own maths experiences at school. And I don't think until I started my BEd, I don't think I'd ever really considered what 3 times 4 meant on a deeper level. I mean, of course I understood what it meant, but I'd never actually verbalized it and I'd never drawn it on paper. And it wasn't until I was learning how to teach that I was like, oh, of course that's what it is. But I just never had to think of it that way because I just learnt my times tables. And that's just a really simple example. But obviously,
yeah, certainly something I can recognize.
But that's also, it leads on to higher mental calculation. So if you understand what 3 times 3 means, then you should be able to easily apply that to, okay, so then what does 30 times 3 equal? How many times do I times 40 to get to 160? That those connections should be easier because they've had a lot of time to explore those concepts.
Yeah, I can certainly see that once you're working with the fundamentals, it becomes much more straightforward, perhaps, to deal with the more complex procedures.
Yeah, and again, I've spoken to Harry, and we both, over the course of our education, we've both had times where we failed at maths. And so for me personally, I was always quite high achieving in maths. And so I went through primary, I was in the top sets, throughout secondary, and it was all very procedural. And I was just able to follow procedures. And if I didn't know how to do it, I would just go back to an answer that I'd previously done and I would just work backwards. Okay, I did it this way. There was no deep understanding. I was just following a set of steps. And then that all kind of fell apart when I decided to do A-level maths. And that's actually based on a deep understanding of the maths that you're doing. It's no longer just procedural. There's a lot of exploring and more open-ended tasks, and I hadn't been prepared for that, like, over the course of my education. And so really, even if you are a procedural learner, there's only, I would say, a small percentage of children that just naturally see those patterns and they just naturally develop that conceptual understanding. For others, like me, you become procedural learners. You don't necessarily make those connections, but you're able to get by. And then there's a huge amount of children that will end up left behind. They'll be struggling for quite some time. And I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about more in the past. And that's why you will quite often hear people say, I can't do maths, I don't like to do maths, or maths isn't for me. And it's so culturally acceptable that I think that is rooted in how we were taught when we were younger. We weren't taught for depth or mastery.
Okay, thank you, Jade. So, Harry, we've moved on since perhaps the days when we were doing sum after sum after sum and exercise books in primary school classrooms. My daughter last year taught me something called a part-whole model that I'd never seen before in my life. And she was able to explain to me how it worked after a couple of goes. Is that the way forward? Are we looking at a more conceptualized way of doing mathematics in primary schools these days?
It is, Christopher. It's linking the concrete, so the practical side, the maths manipulatives, the resources, to the pictorial. So you're talking about the bar model, which helps children make sense of a problem. It might not tell them exactly what operation they need to do, but it helps them make sense of it. And then you can go on to abstract. And sometimes it's not always in that order. Sometimes you might go for the abstract and you say to the children, prove it with these resources, make sense of it. And that's what we do with parents. So if their children are struggling, we give them ways. How you go back, don't criticize them, don't give them maths anxiety or have tears at home. And I know after lockdown there've been many maths tears and parents struggling. It's been a challenge for all of us. So what we do is we empower parents. We say to them, go back to the year group below for addition or subtraction. Try this with them. We have that open door, that relationship where we help parents and let them know it's okay if your child is struggling, and we look at why. Sometimes it could be behavior, or that getting lost in a class of 30 children and they sometimes need small group work, or sometimes if English isn't their first language, they've fallen behind with their maths vocabulary and they need that smaller group time to make sense of the vocab, to explore their ideas through language. And sometimes it's a more serious learning need. It could be they have working memory issues, so they can't retain information. That's where the practical maths and the pictures and the bar models and the different images we have helps them. Or sometimes it's dyscalculia, so they don't have that natural number sense that you and I have. When we close our eyes and compare numbers, we see number lines in our head. Not all children have that. And also those early number experiences. So for example, with my children, I remember having my little girl on my kitchen worktop. She wasn't walking and I was doing her milk powder, and as I counted the 7 scoops, she was making little noises with me. And that's an early counting skill. And our Greek and our English number rhymes and our stories and counting out cutlery, and Sesame Street and all of those things, number blocks, and it was number jacks. All of these lay the foundation for maths, and we have to help parents find out how far to go back, maths games, all these ideas, and we just let them know. So Jade and I always talk about our own experiences, and we let them know, yeah, I have had tears with my oldest daughter, not my youngest, but it happens. So to help parents, they have to trust you, and you have to show them that you're human. And my maths experiences, I don't know how I was in top set. I always think I was a little bit jammy. It was textbook teaching. Go to page 67, but there was no real life problems. There was no this maths linked to this job. There was no mathematicians that I learnt about that inspired me. It was just very plain. And when I went on to do psychology A level, I had a big shock to the system because I had to use data to analyze research, and it was just too abstract. And I left psychology and I didn't take it further. So maths teaching affects everything. And I know my brother was a secondary maths teacher. I don't know if he's listening, but I know if children leave primary school behind, it can take 4 years to do what a year in primary school would do.
Mm.
So it's really important to close that gap early, even from 6 and 7 years old. Research shows if you close that gap early, they are going to be more successful mathematicians. So it's really about reaching them early, and parents are crucial. They are the first educators of our children, so we have to support them.
So how might a typical workshop operate for you then, Harry, with the parents of these children?
So over the years, Jade and I were always developing and improving, and with our maths leaders, with Sarah Tilley and Peter Warwick from Enfield, we're always sharing good practice with other maths leaders. So in the beginning, we would be at the front with a PowerPoint, their resources would be on the table, when we would show them how you would use, for example, the colourful Cuisenaire rods to explore multiplication, say 3 lots of 12. So you've got a 10 and a 2, a 10 and a 2, a 10 and a 2. Or we would use something called Numicon to explore times tables as well. So it was us talking, letting them explore, having that question and answer, sharing funny stories. Humour is really important, and real life stories.
Biscuits were also very important.
Biscuits and cake, and me and Jay just even making a little mistake or me writing the wrong digit on the board, just to let them know they loved stories. But our most recent one, which was probably the best one that I did, was times tables. So the numbers were dwindling. Sometimes as the children get older, the numbers reduce, whereas in early years in year 2 workshops, we had more parents, maybe because they were less, not less threatened, but they felt more confident to join that workshop, as opposed to look at percentages and decimals in year 6. So with the times tables, this is what I did. I showed them how we teach times tables. So if it was 3 times 5, it's 3 lots of 5 as a rectangular array. So spots, 1 lot of 5, 2 lots of 5, 3 lots of 5. Or on a number line, you count 3 jumps in 5s, 5, 10, 15, or with a Numicon, or just different ways. And then I'd had some card games or drawing games where they're drawing out and also using maths language. And then I showed them tricks. I also do memory tricks, and we also learn by rote. So there's a place for every type of learning. And then I invited the children. So then the teachers brought the year 4 children, and their parents taught their children. And it was really wonderful because they felt empowered. They had the skills. And I taught them, and then they actually applied it, because if they go home, they might not, it's less likely that they'll all give it a go. So it's just wonderful. And I just sat back, and Jade and I were the facilitators, and we just sat back and watched the magic in the room. And it was so lovely to see children laughing with their parents playing times tables, as opposed to me standing up when I was 10 and learning through fear. That's how it was.
I remember that. I remember being put on the spot. That's how it would happen. You'd be cold called, essentially, with your times tables. You either knew them or you didn't. Jade, you'll have to explain this Numicon to me. What is that?
You're putting me on the spot because it's a very concrete apparatus. So they're basically they're plates, and you have a number. You have a plate for each number from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And the odd numbers are all kind of like L shapes. So they all have like we call them little chimneys. And the even numbers are all just rectangular. And so they're used more often in Key Stage 1, but that's quite often because in Key Stage 2, not as much time can be dedicated to learning how to use those resources, because there's so many other things going on, but they do have a lot of value across. And you can use them for all sorts of things. So you can use them at the most basic level for number recognition, actually counting out and understanding that each number is actually a set of objects. Or you can use them for addition. You can put them together. They're great for doubles. They're great for sorting out odd and even numbers. And they're fantastic in year 6. This was one of my wow moments for when you have to convert a remainder into a fraction. They are great for actually modeling how you do that. So for example, if you were doing 9 divided by 4, you'd make your 9 with the Numicon, and then you would place 4s on top of it. So obviously you'd have 2, and then you'd have your 1 left over. But if you then cover it with the 4, you can see that you actually have 3/4 of that 4 left over. And then you can, it's really hard to verbally show, because obviously they are concrete apparatus, and that's the purpose, is to actually use them to show maths. But they do provide a lot of wow moments, and actually when used right, you can just get through concepts so much quicker, because some children may need to stay on them for a couple of years, like lower down, but for some children they just need to see things, they just need to see it once or twice, and then they're able to apply it straight to abstract. So they really do work well across the curriculum, and also across the ability levels within a class.
Fantastic. They sound really quite sophisticated and yet simple things at the same time, which I suppose is what maths really is, isn't it?
I think they were actually part of the reason they were designed was to help children articulate their maths thinking, because if you can create it, it's then easier for you to describe it. And that's also a big part of the maths curriculum, is being able to actually explain your thinking and why things work or why things don't work. And using apparatus like that really opens up that channel, especially for children who may have language barriers, but also for anyone, really.
Does this also reveal a potential problem, Jade, as the maths curriculum continually changes? We're going to end up rather like we did briefly when we were at secondary school. You end up with a generation gap in mathematical skills and knowledge. So for us, well, certainly for me, it was the inches and centimetres thing. I'd be coming home and measuring things in centimetres. My dad wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about.
From what I can recall, and I am quite good at knowing the curriculum, but I think one of the only things that got dropped off of the primary curriculum, and people are welcome to prove me wrong because I could quite well be wrong, I think it was just probability that went from the key stage 1 and key stage 2 curriculum. And other than that, there were things like, I think like angles may have been moved from year 2 to year 3, but actually it would have only been 1 year group, and they would have caught up in the following years.
So we're not losing topics then, we're just changing approaches to them.
Yeah, it wasn't so much that the actual expectations changed. They did. Some of them were made higher. It was more that you don't move learning on too quickly. So just because they know, for example, the 3 times tables and the 4 times tables, if in their year group that's all that they need to know, you just start putting that into problems. So missing boxes or problem solving, or exploring what happens when you multiply odd numbers and odd numbers, rather than constantly moving on. So you're constantly going for that depth, and in doing that you make sure that there's challenge available to everyone, because actually even the children who are underachieving by their yearly standard, they should still be challenged. And so it makes you more open to how you challenge each child, which is really important.
Thank you. And Harry, could I just ask you about any practical strategies you think might be employed in primary school maths classrooms for our listeners who are listening in tonight?
I just think, like, embrace the CPA approach, the concrete, the pictorial, and the abstract. Add the maths language is key, but not just to list the vocab on a board, but show children how it's used, to give examples, and also make maths meaningful. So if you're doing ratios, link it to cooking. If you're doing, what were we doing? We were doing pentominoes recently in the last few weeks, where the children had 5 squares that create a pentomino, and I linked it to being architects. They were architects for the morning, and they had the little cubes, and they were exploring the different layout of rooms you could make with 5 squares, and just adding that meaningful context made it powerful. And they were all active. Again, I stood back and I let them explore the different possibilities, and they were talking and supporting. And then they had you'd see some children, as the problem got harder and I gave different layers to it, they would struggle, Christopher. And that's when I go in and I make them aware, right, this is that moment. That feeling you're feeling is frustration. There's several things that you can do. You can ask for support from your friend, look at some of my questions that will guide you, or I will come and help you. But it has to be creative. They have to know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's definitely not just procedural learning. It's about understanding what you're doing and why, and making it purposeful. and also letting them be aware, what does maths, what sort of subject is it? It's a creative subject. It's a subject where there could be several answers, where your approach might be different to mine, but it doesn't, we explore who had the most efficient method, but it should be something that we enjoy, and we definitely do need to raise the profile of maths as well, maths and chess. Actually, that is our long-term aim.
And
I
that is
know we've got great maths teachers, and joining Twitter in the last, I don't know, since COVID, since January actually, has been amazing, because it's like I have mini courses every day. I love reading the articles and the research. So there are wonderful things happening in maths in our country. So yeah.
Fantastic. And just one more question. I'll put this to Jade first, and I'll put it to you, Harry, afterwards, before we move on to our final topic. Jade, what role do you think screen learning plays in maths in the primary school?
Well, me and Harry spoke about this, and obviously there are so many good apps at the moment. You have things like Mathletics. I know there's Purple Math. So there are lots of different valuable apps that you can use. But obviously a lot of screen learning, if you're downloading apps, is rote learning. So it is a case of how fast can you achieve this or that. And there is a place for rote learning, but it has to come after conceptual understanding. So definitely you have to maximize everything that you have. And children are so engaged in their screens that if you can actually have them playing maths games or watching maths videos, then of course you should do it.
Thank you. And Harry?
Really great position, and I know the students are so lucky now, because there are videos, there are great practitioners sharing online learning for free, and there's Times Table Rockstars and lots of other things that you can subscribe or buy into. But technology is doing great things for maths, for home learning especially. And it was during lockdown when I was doing my home learning online with my groups. It was great to go onto Mathagon and show the Numicon or the bar models and use these in interactive ways. So yeah, technology is really strengthening maths, but there's nothing like, just like chess, there's nothing like working practically in class as well. So yeah.
Thank you. That's a nice way of rounding our conversation off on that topic. We're going to go to our second ad break now, and then we're going to come back and think briefly for about 10 minutes or so about the knowledge-rich curriculum, if such a thing exists, or if we can bring such a thing into existence and what it might look like in the primary school. So we'll be back straight after the ad break.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Okay, so welcome back. And I'm talking to Harry and Jade in this final section of the show about a wisdom-rich curriculum, which is an idea I've had in my mind for a year or so. And I'd be interested to see if you could suggest what it might look like in the primary school. Jade, would you like to start us off?
Oh, when we were thinking about wisdom rich, we were really thinking about chess. So you've really thrown me. But I would say.
Well, I suppose the question is, what wisdom does one gain from playing chess or learning to play chess, Jade?
Yeah. So if we did look at chess, but a lot of these are again related to maths. There's obviously all the skills like critical thinking, rich talk, higher order thinking, but then there's also a much greater impact on well-being and mindfulness and learning to manage your emotions, especially as we said before with the challenges of losing. But then also at the moment with COVID, it gives you an opportunity to reconnect. A lot of the older generation can play chess, and a lot of our younger generations haven't been able to interact with their grandparents or older relatives. And so we really believe it's a great way for them to reconnect and bond post-COVID.
That's a great observation, I think, the cross-generational nature of the game once you've got to grips with the basic rules. Harry, what do you think?
Jade, you said it all so well, but I think the thing that I might add is that we have to think about those children that can get lost in our schools. And I think chess is so unique that it will surprise you. It will scoop up those children that are hidden, the quiet ones or the troubled ones, and it will give them something different. It will give them a label, self-belief, confidence. I had one little boy, he's been coming at lunch. He said, "Miss, I'm studying at home. I'm teaching my mum." So that taught him the power of self-study, not to have a teacher telling you, but he did that independently. In my other school on Fridays, I had a boy, he came with his journal to show me, and he said, and he showed me that he had a passion. What he said to me about chess and about the lessons, it just showed me, you are excited. I have ignited something in you, and that's through chess. And that's what your wisdom school should have. It should have learners that are excited to go to their next lesson. Another child who and Jade, you taught this child as well. She never used to speak at school. She had some difficulties there, and as she's got older, she speaks to those close to her. And recently, she came to me at the end of the lesson and spoke to me about the Queen of Katwa, a film that I shared in a lesson. And she said, "Miss, where can I watch it? I don't have I think it was a Disney film." She said, "I don't have Disney." And she told me about her plans to visit her cousin. And I know that sounds like something so tiny, such a tiny story that might not be significant, but actually for this child who's never spoken to an adult she doesn't have a bond with, that was a huge moment. So I think it ignites a passion, and it brings something to that person who might be a little bit lost, who needs that something to have self-belief. And I think that's what chess, the power of chess, yeah, it's amazing.
And also, as we did mention before, it really allows you to make mistakes and to understand that making mistakes is a great way to learn. But the more you look into chess, the more you can relate that back to grandmasters and masters and professional players, because all of them study their winning games, their losing games, to be able to then improve their game. So again, in terms of wisdom rich learning, being able to accept your mistakes but then also analyze them and move forward is a great way to learn.
You're making a compelling case, Jade. How should I timetable it in my school day?
He said Jade.
I want to just add metaphor before we round up, Jade. We have to put it in there.
Yeah, no, so in your school day, so previously I would always have on my actual maths working wall, I would always have a space for, I used to call them marvelous mistakes, but we've taken your term magnificent mistakes. And I'd have a space on my board. And so if somebody made a great mistake that was a common misconception, we would celebrate it. And so we'd say somebody's made an absolutely fantastic mistake. And if they were happy for it to be them, which if you create that ethos, they usually are, and we'd put it up, we'd celebrate it, but then we would pick it apart and we'd say, why is this wrong? And what can we learn from this mistake? And then the mistake would go up on the board. So it was basically just changing that whole ethos in the classroom to mistakes are great things to make, and this is why.
Okay, certainly. So you'd be putting it into your...
I think you have to do it as they come along. I don't think it's something you can plan for. I think it has to be something that you make part of your daily practice, so that when it does come along, it's not a novelty, it's something that they're used to, but they're also happy for their work to be shared. So really not something that you can timetable, particularly in maths, because they quite often just occur in the actual lesson. We always plan for misconceptions, but you can't always guarantee that a child is actually going to make them. And it's so much more natural when that mistake came from the child and not you kind of manufacturing that mistake.
Yeah, I can see that. So there's a sense of context that gives it a credibility.
Yeah.
Harry, any thoughts on that?
Going to finish off with metacognition, making children aware of their thinking and the skills that they have. So their learning toolkit. So what chess does and what game-based learning and all of these things do. It makes you aware. Have I got good critical thinking? Can I plan ahead? Do I have self-study skills? What do I need to improve on, and how can I do this? So they take ownership of their learning, and what can I tap into? So with our interventions at my school, it wasn't just for those that were struggling. We also offered things for those kind of in the mid-range, and we didn't let children. You don't set children so they're going to be constantly in red group or circle group like it was in the olden days. You have no barrier, no ceiling on those children. So children need to know that they can achieve in maths and in chess, and to aim high and be aware what are they good at, what are their weaknesses, and how can they build on that. And I think that's what chess does. It really does make you aware of yourself as a learner, and for life actually. Like you said with your daughter, sometimes losing is hard, but she sounds like an amazing chess player. So she can start to think, how can I develop? Can I go on chesskid.com or read this book or do more puzzles? So yeah, metacognition is something that chess does bring to your wisdom-rich curriculum.
Yeah, she'll certainly be reaching the point where she realizes that pawns become queens if you take them far enough.
Oh, wow.
So they really
That's
don't
an
need any more
exciting
protection.
moment. That is and I have to say, my biggest wow moments in class when I tell them, we look at the points of each piece, and then I say, how many points do you think the king has? And I say 0. I tell them there is no point value, and they're shocked. And then we talk about what's the most important piece. It is the king, but what's the most powerful piece? And these are discussions, early skills in philosophy. So by bringing chess into your school, you are touching on language, philosophy, maths, social relationships, just so much and life skills.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a fascinating area to explore once you start looking at what the pieces might represent and the semiotics of each individual chess piece. But that could well have to be a conversation for another evening, because I'm afraid we've come to the end of the show, and it's been truly fascinating talking to you both about your experiences of chess in schools and about your experiences with working with parents who are getting to grips with new mathematical terms. So there's certainly a couple I've picked up tonight that I'll be going to explore on Google at a later date. So I hope you've enjoyed being on our show tonight.
We have. Thank you so much for having us and giving us the opportunity.
And we'd love to have you on again sometime. It sounds like you're doing some absolutely wonderful things with children in your primary schools. And I'd be really interested to hear how you get on, Jade, with setting up a chess club in your new school. And I'd be delighted to hear, Harry, how you get on with getting your children more and more involved in this Chess in Schools project. They both sound very worthwhile and amazing things to be involved with. It sounds like you're making some really significant transformations to the lives of the students you teach.
Hopefully.
Thank you. Christopher, can I just say, we don't work for Chess in Schools. I just want to make that clear. But we just want to raise the profile of chess, and that's our passion. So yeah, please get in touch with us or them, and thank you so much for letting us talk today.
So thanks again for your time. It's been great to talk to you, and I wish you good luck with the new term when it comes.
And you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye. Good night.
So there we are, listeners. We've come to the end of another late show. We've explored the significance of chess in schools. We've looked at some of the issues that parents can face when trying to take their children through their primary school maths work, both remote learning wise when in the home and in the school classroom. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm going to be taking a few weeks off while I have a summer holiday down country, but I look forward to speaking to you all again before very long. So it just remains for me to say thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the show this evening and the shows that I've been developing over the course of the last term. I look forward to speaking to you all again after my return from the summer holiday. Thank you and good night.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.